Hey guys, before we got into this video, we wanted to let you know about a couple things. A couple of the items mentioned in this video have been since removed from the game. Vicious Intent, Hood of Defiance, and Recruiter have all been removed from Underlords. Swim wanted to let you all know that despite that, the rest of the video does have its relevant points. So enjoy the video, and we hope you learned a lot.
What is up, boys? We're back with part 2 of my full Underlords item guide and kind of like tiering system. This is just going to be covering more equipment stuff. If you haven't seen part 1, you definitely should check that out first. But here we're continuing in the same process through tier 3 and tier 5 items. This one should be a little bit quicker just because we have already established a lot of the ground rules about like where like certain stats are going to want to be distributed. So we can start off at the top of tier 3, the best of the best, Mask of Madness. Now I put this at the top. It is a little bit situational. The important thing to understand about Mask of Madness is that you really want a hero that you don't mind silencing for this to reach its full potential. This item is crazy good in Knights and Assassins. Basically the way this works is a silence will stop an active ability from going off, but it will not stop a passive from going off. So for example, if we look at the heroes, if we put it on something like Slark, we have no downside because he has no active ability, he only has 2 passives. Right? So the best carriers for Mask of Madness are of course those heroes with passives. That's going to be something like a Troll Warlord, something like a Slark or a Phantom Assassin in Assassins. In Knights we have Luna as well, but even a Chaos Knight you don't necessarily mind silencing this if it gets to something like level 3. And those are going to be the just best targets in the game for Mask of Madness. There are a few others, like for example something like a Sniper or maybe something like a Doom that hits very hard and kind of wants that attack speed. I want to actually break this down a little bit in terms of how powerful this item is. So I kind of talked a little bit before in the previous part about attack speed versus damage, and I explained that attack speed is a lot better than damage. I tiered Gloves of Haste much higher than Claymore, and there's a specific reason for this, which is attack speed scales with DPS. You want to put it on a hero with high DPS, whereas damage only scales with attack speed. You just want to put that on a hero with high attack speed, and that's it, right? But as heroes level up, they gain more DPS, but almost never actually gain more attack speed. Which means, when you get into a late game scenario, if you have a level 3 hero, it depends on the hero maybe a little bit, but almost every level 3 in the entire game will gain more DPS from a Gloves of Haste than a Sacred Relic, right? Let that sink in. That's really important. This is how powerful attack speed is compared to damage on something like a big level 3 or even like a powerhouse level 2, like a Troll Warlord level 2 or like a big demon level 2 or something receiving like buffs can be totally fun on a level 2. So keep that in mind. And Mask of Madness is 3 times as strong as Gloves of Haste, and it has 20% lifesteal. So when you have the time to put this on something completely insane, you really want to put it on something that doesn't really mind silencing its own ability. Starter is another decent example of something you can put it on. Next up, we have Skull Basher. Skull Basher is nuts. This item, when you don't have the Mask of Madness target, you know, something that can reasonably equip this, again, because keep in mind, it is situational, Skull Basher is never, ever bad. This is just the most solid tier 3 item. You can never really go wrong picking it, unless you're picking it over something like a really good tier 4 item. But Skull Basher is quite insane. So at 25 attack damage, and a 25% chance to deal an extra 100, it averages at something like 50 per attack, but with the stun on top of that, it's 1500 millisecond stun. It does have a 2300 millisecond cooldown, so there is a bit of a cooldown on the stun when it goes off, but basically this outclasses Relic so hard it's not even funny. Relic gives you an extra 10 attack damage on average, but Skull Basher, the bash time, the 1.5 second bash is very powerful, and the way it distributes its damage gives you a high chance of killing a target before they have actually cast their spell, right? Because if it procs, it deals the extra damage on top of that, and you can maybe burst them down during the stun. This item is phenomenal. You want to pair this with something with high attack speed, basically, is going to be the biggest modifier for this, or something that needs plus attack damage. So the best things to put this on are something like Wind Ranger that has high attack speed, something like Alchemist. Warlocks like dealing plus damage because Warlocks, whenever Warlocks deal damage, they get more value out of the life link, right? And Alchemist has very high attack speed, as we can see here. He has a basic attack rate of 1 attack per second. So Windrunner that attacks very fast, something like Gyro that attacks very fast. This is your kind of quintessential attack speed item, but you can also pair it with heroes that just need the plus damage. For example, it does give plus 25 damage, so something like Luna or something like Shadow Fiend, any demon multiplier, or any like DPS multiplier like Moonglaves is going to be a pretty phenomenal carrier for this item. Next up we have Maelstrom. Maelstrom recently got bumped from a tier 4 to a tier 3. As a tier 4, it was actually mediocre. It was worse than like Daedalus, Moonshard. It was worse than most of tier 4s, but hey, I mean, it was not that bad. You bump this baby to a tier 3, this is suddenly high tier material, right? This just went to, I think, 3rd place in tier 3. I would rate this over Relic, although it is maybe a little bit close. So the 25% just casting and lightning, this is magic damage, so it's very efficient. 100 damage across 4 targets. The equipment on this is very straightforward. This is just a pure attack speed scalability, right? So obviously the faster the attacks, the more this is dealt. It doesn't amplify the damage of something like a Luna or a Shadow Fiend, like the plus attack damage from Skullbasher will. So you don't care about demon bonus or anything. So there's 3 things you care about. One is attack speed, which, you know, it's the same heroes that is really going to be capitalizing off that. You know, something like that attacks very fast, at least like probably 0.91 attacks per second or something like that. Troll attacks very fast. Anything that has good attack speed, but also you want it on something that's survivable, right? It's important that the unit isn't really dying. Bonus points if you have it on a Warlock. So again, Alchemist is top tier Maelstrom carrier, or oddly enough, something like a Batrider. Batrider is a great Maelstrom carrier. His sticky napalm actually amplifies every source of damage that comes from him. So if he's carrying the Maelstrom, it'll actually deal a little bit more damage based on napalm procs, based on how many stacks it has on them. Alright, we can get to Sacred Relic, which is, like I said, it's under Maelstrom and Skullbasher, but I'm never really unhappy to see this. It's still something that can scale pretty well in the mid-game with attack speed, and you're going to want it on similar heroes. However, unlike Maelstrom, it's basically all attack damage that it gives you, so it's going to be good on something that multiplies attack damage. You've got this demon modifier for plus 50% pure damage, which is going to be good on the plus attack damage here. And then you've got something like the Glaive bounces on Moonglaves, or even something like, you know, Dragon Knight's splash damage or Medusa's split shot. These are all going to be able to basically just multiply the plus damage that you have on you. In addition to, you know, your typical attack speed modifiers, which pretty much any of these offensive items is going to want to scale with. Alright, down to Mechanism. So Mechanism, obviously, you want to put it on a unit that has a fairly low amount of health, that they're going to be kind of getting below 50% health a little bit quickly as your frontliner. So a good hero to put it on is basically anything that's on your frontline. Typically, it depends on your comp, but a lot of comps you're gonna be frontlining units like Alchemist, units like Disruptor, units like, in some cases, some like units like Pudge, Chaos Knight, whatever. You know, you guys know the concept of frontline units. It can be basically on anything. The most important thing is it's taking damage fast enough. You don't want to put this on a backliner because they just won't take damage fast enough for this heal to kick in to save everything it needs to. Right? If you put it on a unit like Disruptor, like if you have a level 1 Disruptor that needs to get an ult off, it'll actually help it survive long enough too, because it's hard for it to get bursted so quickly unless the opponent has a Dagon or something. It's hard for it to get bursted so quickly that the like 250 health won't kick in, although if you are heads up against the Dagon, you do need to get your Mechanism off your level 1 unit so that it doesn't just get bursted down and you lose your activation with it. So Mechanism is a pretty solid item. It's a little bit secondary compared to the DPS items. You might have noticed the 4 DPS items in tier 3 are the 4 top items I recommend. It's really important to just get something big in this meta. Like, it's almost always a Shadow Fiend, in my opinion. Like, a Shadow Fiend is just like, if you can get a level 2 Shadow Fiend, if you can, slap a DPS item on him, you're gonna have a good time, right? Maybe something that can use Mask of Madness, or maybe you get like a Troll Warlord near the end of the game, but having like one DPS unit with one good DPS item is very important. But after that, Mechanism still has a solid impact on your game. It has 3 cell radius, so obviously you want to put it on something somewhat centralized the battle, but it's such a big range, it'll basically hit the entire team. Bringing us to Vanguard. So Vanguard is an item I used to rate a lot higher, but the meta has shifted, and we see a lot of like more damage distribution. We see a lot of like powerful ultis, stuff like Disruptor, stuff like Alchemist needs to be kind of padding your front line, and you want to get mana distributed across all your heroes. So the idea of kind of a main tanker that's blocking everything with Vanguard does fall off. Vanguard was mostly good in a time where, you know, you could get something like level 2 Slardar, get Retaliate at 80 damage per second, slap a Vanguard on him, and you're good to go, right? The idea behind this item is have like a single tank frontline, which in the past has been good with something like Assassins, but now Assassins are going to want to run something like Sand something like Morphling. They want to get these mana on their abilities fast, so you really want to be kind of more so distributing your damage across your front line evenly, which makes Vanguard and the concept of it just kind of bad. Right now, it's a very powerful item in theory. There will be some metas where you will be fine just like having all of things attack one thing, and Vanguard is phenomenal in these situations, but just doesn't do that much right now. If you're going to use this right now, you do want to put it on some like main tanker, like a level 2 Pudge, oftentimes like a Treant Protector, because Assassins and Hunters will often be frontlining Druids, and it will still do a lot of work. I'm never too unhappy to see this item. And finally, we've got Hood, which honestly is about the same as Vicious Intent to me. So Hood of Defiance is 50% magic resistance and 10 health regen. Not very useful. This honestly feels kind of like what Cloak should be. Like, as a tier 1 item, it's something that I would be like a lot more inclined to pick. You know, it's got like the magic resistance of Cloak and the health regen of like Tranquil Boots. Magic resistance is not a phenomenally useful stat. There are some situations where this